You are watching the Goldratt satellite program broadcast live from Castle Engelenburg in the Netherlands. Today is the fourth of our 8 sessions on the theory of constraints, distribution and supply chain. Here's Dr. Ellie Goldratt.
Good to see you again. And for those that are hiding behind this camera, good to imagine you again. Distribution. The first thing to realize is that almost all functions in the organization are impacted by distribution. So let's not think about, okay, we are in production or we are in healthcare. We shouldn't care about distribution. Distribution impacts almost everybody. We are going to see to what extent production is impacted by distribution, much more than people imagine, even if you are maybe the first link in the supply chain, which means you supply to somebody else, who supply to somebody else, who then supply to the market through the distribution. You are impacted dramatically by distribution. And not less important, you can impact distribution. Not just can, must. If you are, for example, in the healthcare, how can you be impacted by distribution? How much of the healthcare industry, how much of the cost is drugs, medicines? Have you noticed that this is something like 30% of the total amount of money? And if the distribution is not handled correctly, it can bring you to your knees. And besides, every one of us from time to time goes to a shop. We are impacted by distribution. So even for a general understanding of how come that we are coming and we want this white shirt and we cannot find it. I'm missing, if there is one thing that I'm missing due to this program, it's white shirts. Distribution. This is, by the way, one of the most difficult subjects to understand because there are so many points of view on it. It's a point of view of the supplier to the distribution. It's a point of view of the one inside the distribution, for example, in charge of a regional warehouse. It's a point of view of the client, and everybody thinks that all the others don't know what they're doing. And if he or she would have been in charge of the whole thing, they can do much, much better. It's amazing to what extent people think so about everyone that is in distribution. It's amazing. It's not just top management and think like that, that if they would have been in charge of the whole thing, it would have been much better. Even the lowest person in the pyramid is totally convinced that if he would have managed it, it would have been much better. Why is it? Maybe the best way to look on it and to see to what extent opportunity here for improvement or the problem is big is by asking somebody in the distribution chain, how much inventory do you have? Usually the answer is, let's say, so many millions of dollars. Many times, it doesn't give the answer in dollars, which are actually looking in the past and saying how much did I invested in having the inventory, but it's looking to the future and it's telling you, oh, we have 6 weeks inventory. Why do I call it looking to the future? Because it actually say inventory that I hold is sufficient on average to cover 6 weeks of consumption. But when you really look into the details of this 6 weeks inventory, you'll find out that some items are zero in stock. They ran out totally. Some other items, they have enough for their grandchildren. And this is called on average 6 weeks. And of course, everyone is aware of it, and that's why everybody is convinced we can do much, much better. Let's use the techniques that we already learned in order to understand the maze that is happening in distribution and why the performance are such that nobody is happy with. For that, let's use the 5 focusing steps that we have learned in session 2. Remember what was the first step? Always identify the system constraint. Identify the thing that if you had more from it, you would have more throughput. You would have sold more. Now, if you're in the distribution and you have inventory, plenty of inventory, not always the right inventory, but you do have plenty of inventory, what is the thing that if you had more, definitely you would got more throughput, more sales? Now, everybody knows it. Clients. If more clients would have come and want to buy, definitely I would have found something to sell them. The constraint of the system are clients who come to buy. What is the second step? Exploit the system constraint. Don't waste it. If a client already entered and want to buy, sell him. But how? What's the meaning of exploit the system constraint? In our case, it means you must hold at the right place, in the right time, the right inventory. Because if you will not hold at the right place, at the time that the client comes, the right inventory, then the client will say, sorry, and will go out, also a little bit disappointed, which means maybe second time he will not come to you. Exploit the system constraint means have the right inventory in the right place at the right time. Everybody knows it. Not like in other places that maybe we didn't know the constraint. In distribution, everyone knows the constraint, and everybody knows how important it is to exploit the constraint, and everybody knows what is needed to be done in order to exploit the constraint. The problem is in the third step, in subordination. In other words, how do we make our entire system subordinate so that we can exploit the constraint? What must we do in order to have the right inventory at the right place at the right time? And this is not simple at all. Now let's look on it and let's understand much more of the logic. Now, of course, in order to do that, I've wrote some trees. But what I found out is that since most people are not intimately in the distribution, it's quite hard to understand the cause and effect in this tree. So instead, I decided that I will use animation. You don't mind that this represents the manager in distribution. He's a nice fellow, no? He's even smiling. Move your eyes. No? Fine. No, he does. Now let's see, where's the distribution starting from? Where's the whole concept? Look on what is happening. What we see is a mismatch in satisfying the market demands. Suppose that it takes 1 month to bring the merchandise from the vendor to this location. Okay? From submitting of order until they will produce maybe, and definitely until they will bring it, and somehow we have the impression that whenever we need something urgently, they're using the mode of turtles to bring it to us. Okay? The check is in the mail. And at the same time, the clients want it now. There is a mismatch here. We are not satisfying the client needs. And then what happens is somebody realized, here we don't satisfy the market real needs. There is a business opportunity. And he had a marvelous idea. A light bulb came up. And what is the idea? Let me put the orders to the vendor. Let me put the inventory here in the place. So if clients, if the market wants it now, I can deliver immediately now. Now, if it takes a whole month to bring from submitting order until it arrives, how much inventory should I hold? 1 month. So I have a business. I'm acting upon it. And what is now the situation? The situation is that I've created the distribution business. I have 1 month of inventory. I'm placing orders based on what? Forecast. But when a client comes, I can deliver immediately. Looks nice. But how much inventory do I have to hold if it takes 1 month to bring it? I have to hold 1 month. Wait, what is the meaning of 1 month? 1 month means 1 month of average consumption. Now, we all know what's the meaning of average consumption, right? Sometimes it's below, sometimes it's more. What happens when it's more? What happens when it's more? What happens when 2 clients arrive? More than the average? You drain the inventory, and what is happening now? We want it now! Do you have enough to give? Nope. But the whole business was on customer satisfaction, that you can give now. Uh-oh, we are in trouble, but look what is happening before that. Okay? If it's 1 month on the way, already it means I put 1 month in place. This means I'm already holding 2 months inventory. Remember what happened? 1 month lead time of delivery means now that I'm holding 1 month on the road plus 1 month in inventory. So it doubled. But now it wasn't enough. So what do I do now if I want to give perfect customer service?
3 months.
2 months, 3 months. Now depends on how much is the fluctuations in demand. Let's suppose that in our case the fluctuations are quite small. In other words, in 1 month we can sell many times twice the average month. Okay? I'm still smiling because maybe I've made so much money by providing this service that I can invest in more inventory. Fine, I will act upon my hunch. Which means now the situation will be that how much inventory do I have to hold? 2 months. So how much now is the inventory in the total supply chain? 3 times the lead time. Do you understand now why people are telling you to shrink the lead time? Because the inventory that supply chain have to hold is now 3 times more. And by that we'll do everything perfect? Oh no. Suppose that 2 months was enough to compensate for the market fluctuations. What about sometimes the supply going into problems? I don't talk about strike, I'm talking about we've asked for it from the vendor and this time the vendor had another more important order. Or that the ship was stuck in customs or whatever. Did you hear about such things? Something went wrong. By the way, if you're talking about average supplier, I'm not talking about these phenomenally reliable suppliers, but average supplier. And the average replenishment time from this supplier is 1 month. It means that you have 5% chance to wait more than 2 months. Okay? That's the average suppliers. Okay? Unless you're talking about these phenomenal suppliers that are really supplying 99% on time. Now what happens? Our turtle got stuck on the way. We can give excuses to our clients. What is their tolerance time? 0, which means go and give the excuses to thin air. Your customer service is not good enough. Now you start to think again. And when you think again, what is now coming in your mind? What is the only way out? What is the only way out? More inventory. 4 months? That's a problem. So now I have a choice. Either I'm increasing the inventory even more, or I give up on giving good customer service. One of the two. Suppose that I'm deciding, okay, 4 months. I'm doubling the inventory again. Now I'll probably be, hopefully, 99% on time. But then, look what happened to the inventory. How many inventories do we have? If we will look on one product now, and we'll think about what the product is thinking, maybe we'll get the following statement from the product. It took 2 months to reach, and then I was staying on the shelf another 4 months until it was my turn to be delivered, to earn a customer. How lovely. It was such emergency! We need it now! And then how much time passed until I found the customer? I found the owner? 6 months. If you are looking on many, many industries, and you are not looking on one link, but on the entire supply chain, how many inventory turns do we talk about? Sometimes less than one, to that extent. Are you amazed? Now, it's not always the case. For example, if you're looking in the textile industry, in fashion goods, then it's much better. It's 2. Do you know, by the way, that in the textile industry and fashion goods, people, shops, or chains are buying in the summer for the winter, and for the winter for the summer? You know it very well as consumer. You know, one time I've realized it because I was stuck in Minneapolis in February, and I had to go to buy myself something warm, and I went, Minneapolis, February. Do you know what is the meaning of it? Super freezer. And I went into the shops in February. Do you know what I found in the shops? In the summer clothes. How lovely. It's like, you know, the reality and this. Totally out of sync. Look what is we have now. How much level of inventory do we need? Now, I will read it slowly and then I will explain. And I hope that now, after the cartoons, it will be, these very impressive words will be understood. We need to hold, if we want 100% customer service, or close to it, 99, 98%, we need to hold inventory which is the maximum forecasted consumption within the average replenishment time. If the average replenishment time is 1 month, then the amount of inventories that we have to hold is how much paranoidly key. That's not a word in English. How much, being paranoid, you expect that you might sell within 1 month. Okay? This is the amount of inventories that you have to hold. And that amount you have still to factor by the level of unreliability of the supply chain to you. Do you understand now that this means what? This means very high inventories. Is it understood? Very high inventories. Now we start to see what is the problem. Let's see now the conflict that we are in. Step 3 means what? Large hold inventories. That's the only way out, right? If you want to give good customer service. And this brings us into a conflict. And the conflict is what? We want to manage well. In order to manage well, one thing is protect throughput, give excellent customer service. But in order to protect throughput, in order to give very good customer service, what we learned just now, we must hold high inventories. On the other hand, let's not forget, there is something called cost as well. We want to make money. So in order to manage well, you must control costs. You must reduce costs. And what does it mean to reduce costs? It means to hold less inventories. Now, that was the problem. This is a problem when we looked on one distributor, on one location, one place. And that's already the problem. What happens when we look on the entire distribution net? If we look on the entire distribution net, what do we see there? We see the supplier, plant. We see regional warehouses. And then we see points of sales, shops. The plant, the regional warehouses, and many points of sales. Is it correct? That's usually, let's call this a generic case. Now look what is happening. They're ordering according to what? If I need to hold, let's say, 3 months inventory, this means that I'm ordering now for something that will be sold when? Minimum 3 months in the future. Do I really know what I'm going to sell 3 months into the future? What is the level of accuracy of my forecast? Actually, the forecast is pure guess. Or, you know what, let's be serious, educated guess. This means what? That we are pulling, let's say here, things according to a guess about the future. We have 50% chance of estimating too high or too low. Okay? If we have estimated too high here, this means the inventory will accumulate here. We'll have now here too much. Still, in other places, we will not have enough. Which means even though in the overall system we have enough inventory of the part, there are some places that there isn't enough. What are these places going to say? Since on average we are okay, we don't need the inventory? They will now jump through hoops, get me the inventory. Which means what? Even though the total amount of inventory might be in line with the market consumption, since there are pockets that have less inventory, when the total amount is in line with the market, still there is a demand on the plant to produce more. And this demand is usually what? In those places that they don't have, which means it's urgent. It's emergencies on the plant. The plant will be all the time under pressure, even if the total amount is equal or bigger than what is needed. Unavoidably, almost. This is becoming even bigger due to the fact that we prevent the smooth flow of merchandise here. If you recall in the first session when we talked about production, we said the biggest things that kills smooth flow, the biggest reason is batching. Now it turns out that in the distribution there are 3 places that we are doing batching on immense scale. One batch is done at the shop's level. It's done usually because of 2 reasons. One is we don't want to do forecast every day. We don't have time for it. So we will issue orders once in 2 weeks. Or we'll issue orders once a month. Okay? Do you understand that if you issue orders once a month, you have done batching already of a whole month? The other thing is batching done in order to save on transportation cost. What do you mean we will ship 4 days half a truck empty? We cannot afford it. So we batch in order to have a whole truck, a whole train, sometimes a whole good shipment in a ship. Huge amount of batching. And then there is a third batching, which is since the orders, the urgent orders, are trickled to the plants from all sides, and the plant might have setup, especially in consumer goods, it might have huge setup on these lines. He's batching now in order to save the setups. There are 3 different places that are doing batching and on a huge level. Due to all of that, this whole system becomes immensely unstable. Immensely unstable. Do you know what's the meaning of unstable system? Unstable system means that if it was stable, and you give it even a small fluctuation, a small disturbance, the whole system goes into vibration. That's the meaning of unstable system. Yes, and the distribution system all the time goes into vibrations. Let me, for example, show you what I mean. Everybody that is in distribution knows it, even though very few people are talking about it. But just a few months ago, I've seen beautiful data that was released by Nestle to the market. Thank for Nestle for releasing this data. This was on one of their product line, a major product. And they show what was the actual consumption of the market from this product months after months. And it's stable. As much as stable can be stable in such a thing. You know, it's almost a straight line. Then they show on this same product what was the orders on all the warehouses together. Forget one single warehouse, okay? And it already goes like that. And then they show what was the orders on the plant, and this by far bigger. And then they show the schedule of the plant, and you get the impression that you are talking about very seasonal products. Okay? This is the meaning of a system which is in vibrations. What is the result? You know what's the result? So much inventory in the system, and we still cannot reach 99% delivery to the end consumer whenever he wants. Ramifications are, of course, immense. I'm not just talking about the inventory, but at the cost of the inventory, which is much bigger than if you look just on one warehouse. Remember, it was big enough. It was 3 times more, 4 times more the replenishment time. If you look on that, double it again, minimum. It's much worse than that because it jeopardizes future throughput. It's not just a matter of reducing cost. It jeopardizes future throughput. Why? Because so many times products have shelf lives. Suppose that the product has 30 weeks shelf life, which means 30 weeks, and we dump it. Okay? So this is cost. Why do I talk about future throughput? How many times we don't dump it? And when we don't dump it, what does it mean? We are selling to the market damaged products. What do we do to future throughput? It goes down. As a matter of fact, the 30 weeks is dump it. It's bad. What happens when it's 25 weeks? You've worked so hard to produce a quality product, and when it leaves the planet, it might be a quality product. When it reaches the heights of the hands of the consumer, pray. This is one huge damage, but there is even a bigger damage in some industries. What happens when your product is sold through distribution, like, say, any consumer electronic product, and the lifetime of your product in the market is 6 months? But overall inventories that you have in the pipeline is also about 6 months. Now, you worked so hard to develop the new product, unbelievably hard. You were all over engineering on product development. Give it to me fast! Now you have it. What about launching it in the market? What a decision. Because when you launch it in the market, what do you have to do with all the inventories which are already in the pipeline? One of the two. Either sell them for peanuts, and by that you've just killed the market for your new product, or scrap them. And because of it, so many times we delay the introduction of new products, better products that we have, due to the inventories that we have in the distribution pipeline. When we delay the better product, what have we done actually to our throughput? We've reduced it because we could have done better. That's why we have developed a new product. Is it understood? The damage is here phenomenal. We must do something about it. But the question is, what can we do? Let's look again on the conflict, on the cloud. You have it in your books as well. Look on the cloud and look where we are really stuck. It's obvious that we have to hold less inventories. It's also obvious that we have to hold more inventories. Now, what we want is to find a solution how we can give excellent customer service with less inventories, correct? So let's examine the assumptions between, in order to protect throughput, I must hold more inventories. Let's look on these assumptions and let's examine them. And what are the assumptions there? One assumption is the replenishment time is longer. Correct? Is it real? Oh yes, it's very real. It's not just transportation. It's sometimes waiting for the vendors, many times. That's reality. In many, many industries, it's reality. Many, many industries, many, many countries, that's reality. Replenishment is long. Second assumption is vendors are unreliable. So what can we do? Run their business for them? I know, let's change a vendor. And you change a vendor and what happens? Same thing. Let's educate the vendor. What am I going to do in the next 5 years to improve? We have a problem. And the third one looks really incredible. Remember what we said, where came the first multiplier? If it is 1 month, we have to hold not 1 month, but 2 minimum. Why? Because the fluctuations in the demand are much bigger. If we just knew what will be the actual consumption, in other words, if just our forecast would have been reliable and accurate. But let's face it, we have to hold high inventories because the assumption is that forecasts are inaccurate. Is it reality? Oh yeah. you know what? We will buy a new computer software that will do a better forecast. It's exactly like going and finding a better astrologer with a nice crystal ball. Same thing. It's impossibility. So what is the problem here? Look, each one of these three assumptions looks solid as a rock. Replenishment times are long. Vendors are unreliable. Oh, you will ask the vendors, they will tell you that they are very reliable. It's their vendors which are unreliable. And the forecast is inaccurate. And my question is, can we break the conflict? Can we do something, a change in the way that we are handling our distribution so that these assumptions will not be correct? At this stage, it looks like I'm asking for a miracle. Do I? No, because we know that there are companies that already have shown that it is possible. For example, McDonald's. As a matter of fact, I can look on any company that is dealing with very perishable products. In other words, products that are spoiled in 5 days. Believe me, they don't have 4 months of inventory. They found a way to do it in spite of it. By the way, do you know how much inventory turns McDonald's has? The official numbers that I got from them was 190 inventory turns a year. Do you know what's the meaning of it? It means that when you go into McDonald's and buy a hamburger, most probably this hamburger was mooing yesterday. But they have very simple products. Really? Okay, let me give you another example. Thank God that companies start to wake to the possibility to break these assumptions, and quickly. And I believe that the best example how quickly it can be done, so that you will not think that first of all I have to educate all the vendors and so on, or to invent a beautiful forecast that doesn't exist, even not theoretically, or shrink all the replenishment. As a matter of fact, if you notice something in production, it is possible to shrink the replenishment very quickly. Remember session 1? Is it enough? No. Let me emphasize this point. If you just shrink the lead time in production, do you know what will happen? Can you imagine? Yes, distribution now can hold much less inventories. Will they? They know that from this product, this is the amount of inventories that they need to hold. As a matter of fact, they know that even then they don't have 100%. How much time it will take them to realize that since the vendor actually reduced the lead time, they can reduce the levels of inventory in the distribution. How much time, considering the fact that people have inertia, and companies have even more inertia? Couple of years. So what will happen then? You improve production. The inventories in the distribution has not been slashed, the inventory levels, but now you can really fulfill them. What will happen unavoidably? Inventory in the distribution will go up, not down. If the distribution belonged to your own company, probably you are bankrupt by that time because you've drained all the cash. Or you're a very large company. If it belongs to others, it will go up. You have increase in sales, but then everything is full in the distribution. And then what? And then they wake up and say, we have enough of it. So they don't order until the inventories will go down again, right? What happened to your company when they don't order for, let's say, 3-4 months? Goodbye. So you want really to do something good? Improve production, don't touch distribution, and in 1 year you are bankrupt. What an improvement. You see now why I'm talking about the supply chain? Even if the distribution does not belong to you, remember, as long as the end client doesn't buy it, you are still going to get it as a boomerang. So why do I mention it? I mention it because of a beautiful article that was published in the last Industry Week. Thank God that people start to open their eyes. And the article is about the turnaround, the phenomenal turnaround of Apple computers. From enormous loss to real profit. And at last, Industry Week is saying, because Apple have told them and demonstrated them, it's not because of the purple computers. It's because they've changed totally the entire supply chain. And what killed Apple before was not its computers. By the way, I am a Macintosh user, and let me tell you, everyone that is on Macintosh hates Windows 95. Do you know why? As an Apple customer, I can tell you, you wanted a new computer 2-3 years ago from Apple? You couldn't get it. You wanted some spare part? You couldn't get it. It was enormously problem. And they were stuck either with too much inventories or too little inventories, and that's what killed them. And they took it seriously, and they've changed their system, and they've improved inventory turns, not by 20% or 30%, and they've released their results in Industry Week. They've improved it by a factor of 6. Factor of 6. As a matter of fact, they claim that the last quarter they became better than Dell computers to that extent. And internally they claim that's a real thing. So now the world starts to understand it. But what does it mean for us? It means there must be a solution. Otherwise we have to say that what happened to Apple was a miracle. Well, whoever wants to believe in miracles, fine. I believe in logic, in common sense. By the way, common sense, most of the time, is by far more powerful than miracles. Because if you will ask people in distribution, what miracle do you want? They would say, I want to be able to give better service with half the inventory. No one will say, I want to give better service with 1/4 of the inventory. Okay? Common sense is bigger than miracles. Now, let's start to look on the solution. Now that we understand that we must find a way to eliminate the 3 assumptions, let's start to look on the solution. What is the question? What do we have to change? And remember, where's the direction of the solutions that we are looking for? What will enable us, without miracles, to improve the forecast, to improve the replenishment time, even if the vendors are exactly the same as before, and at the same time to improve the reliability of the replenishment, without yet improving the vendors, because who knows if we can improve the vendors? Okay? Suppose that you are some chain even, and your vendors are big companies, you cannot cause them to improve, and even if you have the force, it takes years and years. How can you do it immediately, now? For that, let's look again on the supply chain, on the whole picture again. And let me start to ask you. Let's start with the thing which is the most impossible to change, which is let's have a more accurate forecast. But when we are asking, let's have more accurate forecast, we actually, in the question itself, we are alluding to something which is wrong. We are as if giving the impression that the accuracy of the forecast is one thing for the whole system. I think that the accuracy of the forecast depends on which stage in the distribution system you are talking about. And I think that you will agree with me. For example, if I'm talking about the highest level, the shop, what is accuracy in terms of percentage of the forecast here? 1 week they can sell nothing, and the next week they can sell 4. Am I right? Of course. Which means what is percentage deviation? Infinite. But if I'm now looking on the regional warehouse that supplied to, let's say, all of Holland or all of the all of New England, do you really believe that I can find that 1 month I'm selling 10,000 and the next month I'm selling 0? That's very unlikely. It might be that 1 month I'm selling 10,000, next month I'm selling 13,000 or 7,000. But you see, here we are talking about much less changes, which means the accuracy at the regional warehouse level is by far better than the accuracy of the forecast at the selling points level. You want the mathematical formula? No, fine. By the way, it's simple. The accuracy improves according to the square root of the number that you consolidate. For example, if here there are 100 shops, it means that the accuracy at the regional warehouse is 10 times better than the relative accuracy than each one of the shops. Okay? You're getting tremendous aggregation here. That's the meaning of fluctuations are averaging out. In this case, it is correct. Same thing is true when we are going from all the regional warehouses back to the plant. And we are talking about the total consumption from this vendor. Once again, the accuracy becomes better. So if we want to talk about more accurate forecast, we don't have to look for a fortune teller. We have in the system different accuracy levels. The question starts to be, how can we utilize this fact, some things that we have already? Let's suppose that we will hold inventory at the most accurate point. Not that it's very accurate, but it's the most accurate point of the system. Where is the most accurate point of the system? At the source, at the plant. That's where we have the biggest aggregation. Let's hold inventory there. You see, the same thing, what we've done is we put here what I call the plant warehouse. By the way, usually this plant warehouse currently is 0. You produced, you ship. Why? Because you ship, it looks like you've sold. Tell me how you measure me, I will tell you how I will behave. Which implies immediately we will have, if we want to adapt that, we will have to change the measurements. Okay? You cannot ask a person to take an action that makes sense, but it's exactly opposite to his measurement. You can ask him to do it, he will never do it. Look now what happens. If I'm holding here inventories, now let's ask, what happened to the replenishment time? Is now the replenishment time to each place the same? What is the replenishment time to this warehouse? It's a production replenishment time. In other words, how much time it takes for the plant to react to a new order and produce the things. But if I'm asking how much is the replenishment time now to a regional warehouse, if I hold here all the inventory, all the products, suppose that I do, what is now the replenishment time to a regional warehouse? It's not anymore connected to production lead time. It's just the transportation. Do you understand that we just now cut the replenishment time by sometimes much more than half? Correct? And if that's the case, and now we can rely on having everything in the regional warehouse, suppose, now what is replenishment time to the shops? 1 day? It's not 4 months anymore. Hello. Shall I repeat it again? I'll repeat it again. Look, imagine yourself that we are totally crazy and we decide to do something that makes sense. We are holding the inventories at the most accurate forecast points that we have. We are holding as much as we can, not as much as we can, as much as we need, at the plant. That moment, what we have done 2 things. One is we have cut dramatically the replenishment time for all the top of the system. Why? Because we took out of the equation a major part of the production replenishment time, which is the production lead time. Moreover, if now we do that and the same thing here, we have cut the replenishment time for a shop not by a factor of 2 or 3, but by much more. Suppose that the replenishment time before that was 30 days. Why it was 30 days? Because we couldn't rely on the fact that it will be in the regional warehouse. Because the regional warehouse had so much shortages. That's why it was 30 days. Now suppose that we can rely on it. What is replenishment time now to the shop? 1 day. We've cut the lead time by factor of 30. Remember what was the inventories that we have told? It was 4 times or 3 times bigger than the replenishment time. This enabled us enormous cut in inventories. But something more than that. If we can guarantee that we'll have all the products portfolio at here, then, since we've cut now drastically the replenishment time, we can much better guarantee that we'll have all the product portfolio here. And if we'll do that, we can guarantee much more that you will have whatever you want. In other words, by doing that, it's not just that we cut the replenishment time, we have increased the reliability drastically. Because if we succeed to have everything that we need here, it means what? It means the reliability now is only, or the unreliability, is only a function of the transportation. Murphy hitting in the transportation, rather than a function of Murphy also in production and in the vendors to the production, which is, between you and me, the majority of the problems. Now the question starts to be, and how much should we hold everywhere? And how much do we have now to add inventory to the system? That's not too difficult to figure out. Let's look on the formula again. What was the formula? Do you remember? It's written in your books. What was the first item in the formula? Paranoid consumption within the replenishment time. Okay? The replenishment time now here is a replenishment time of production. That's not small. Let's say that this is 2 weeks. Fine? Now I have to hold paranoia consumption of the whole country. That's not small as well. Multiplied by the unreliability of the production itself. I will have to hold here quite a lot of inventory. But how much do I trim from here? How much do I have to hold now in the regional warehouses? Production lead time is out of the equation now. So what happened now to the time? Shrink drastically. Because of it, I can shrink now drastically the inventories, because the same formula of how much inventory should I hold is correct also for these points. Okay? But I have reduced here much more. Why? Because the paranoia consumption is a function of what? Of the inaccuracy of the forecast. What did we say? The forecast here is by far more accurate than the forecast here. Which means here, if I have to hold 1.5 times, at the top I had to hold 3 times more, because the paranoia was rightfully much bigger. And what about the shops? In the shops now, the lead time shrank unbelievably, because now it's just transportation from the regional warehouse. Due to that, the inventory shrank enormously. Remember, this was the place that I had to put huge paranoia on each interval of time, and the reliability is huge. When you do the calculation, assuming some number of shops, some number of regional warehouses and so on, you'll find out something amazing. Yes, we have to add a lot of inventory here. But in total, the amount of inventory that can enable us now to reach the same performance have reduced dramatically. The question is how much dramatically and so on. Let me tell you from both calculations and from real life, if right now you are at a level which is above 85% here at this stage, okay, to the clients, whenever they come, you have the in 85% you can deliver immediately. If you are at that level, you can reach over 99% with 1/3 of the inventory in the chain. Shall I repeat these numbers? They are staggering. If right now, at the end level, to the consumer, you are at the service level of 85%, you will be able to reach 99% with 1/3 of the inventory in the pipeline. The question is, okay, how do I turn it into a workable procedure? Do you have any ideas? How do I take what I've said now and turn it into a workable procedure? Remember what we said. Now we know what to do. We know what we want. How will it work? Actually, what do we say here? We actually say something that the Japanese have tried to teach us in production. And we say exactly the same thing for distribution, which is right now we are pushing into the system. We are under the impression that where the merchandise should be as close as possible to the end user. The whole system is made out of push, including, by the way that we are giving commission to our salespeople to push merchandise into the shops. Let's move from push to pull. Let's look on how the system works, from push to pull. As we said, we have entered another stage. We have now a regional, not just shops and regional warehouses, we have now the plant warehouse. The goods are coming from the plants to the shops. This is a stream of the goods. This is not changed. Where's the stream of information? The stream of information goes the following. The shop today sold so many. They report it to the regional warehouse. What does the regional warehouse does with that? He immediately shipped what the shop have consumed. No orders, no batching, no forecast. You sold there, bingo, here it back. Then what is the regional warehouse doing? He is reporting back to the plant warehouse, this is what I have sold, this is what I've given. What is immediately done? Exactly the same. The same amount is now moved from the plant. This information goes to the plant itself. And by the way, here is good communication. It's in the plant. And the plant, material managers and production knows, this is what our buffer went down. Do you remember the concept of buffer? The plant warehouse is the shipping buffer. Our buffer went down. Fine. Does it went down so much that already only 1/3 left of it? Let's expedite. Otherwise, fine, we'll produce. We have time. No emergencies. How do you like that concept? So simple. The amazing thing is, it does work. How to cause a change is another story. Why? Look what is involved in causing the change. Having another warehouse, that's not the biggest problem. Do you know what is one of the biggest problems? Who are the kings of the distribution system today? Do you know? It is the regional warehouse managers. They are the one who decide what to ship. They are the one who decide what to order from the plant. They are one who puts all the pressure on the plant. They are one that you'll better have good relationship with. Otherwise, you will not get the merchandise. They are kings. Rightfully so. And they are so miserable. Because whatever they do, they are between a rock and a hard place. They cannot satisfy everybody. And they are on the plant, and then the plant say, fine, 4 weeks, but they are out of merchandise, so they call another regional manager, and now they start to swap things. Do you know how much things are swapped between the warehouses? How much does it cost? For nothing. Okay? Somebody has to pay for it eventually. They are the kings. Now, under this system, what is the job of a regional warehouse? Does he decide what to ship to the shop? No. Does he decide what to order from the plant? No. His job is to manage the warehouse. That's it. But he's not the king anymore. Do you think that such a thing goes, such a change from a king to a regular manager goes easily? Nope. You have to convince you. But look, before we'll go into that a little bit more, look on what is opportunities and look on how much it works. For example, let me give you a real nightmare. Okay? Do you know what the mean by real nightmare? 7.5 million different products. How do you like that?
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Oh, by the way, each product is composed from about 8,000 different parts, ordered from about 1,000 vendors. Nice nightmare?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. What I've just told you is Cadillac. Cadillac is selling, at the time that we've done it, about 250,000 end items. But you know how many configuration Cadillacs is coming? I'm talking about legitimate configuration, nothing to change the design, existing colors, existing engines, whatever they offer, but all the permutation, and I'm talking about permutations or change in the configurations that can be done only at the assembly line. I'm not talking about the things that the dealer can do. Okay, it's 7.5 million different configurations of Cadillac. Now, what was the problem? How many Cadillacs do you think a dealer holds in his lot? Believe me, not even close to 7.5 million. If you're a big dealer, 200. Oh yes, there are dealers that hold even more than that. Huge dealers. Let's say 200. Out of them, you will try to hold some common ones, the one that really goes. Why? Because when you order from GM, how much time until you get your car? Do you know how much time it takes? Fine, not GM. Cadillac is GM. Right? It's the same. No. They're much better. They promise 45 days. They sometimes deliver in 45 days. Sometimes. No? The official number is 45 days. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, if you want a reliable number, for example, Ford said that their reaction time to the dealers, on average, is 75 days. They've declared it a year ago. GM wasn't much better. Okay? So official number, real number. Okay? By the way, Ford have said we are now taking all the efforts to reduce it to 70 days, and we are putting some hubs inside the United States in order to do it, which is billion of dollar minimum, and so on and so forth. Okay? They must shrink it. Anyhow, if you are a dealer of Cadillac and you know that it takes you probably 70 days, and that's on average, do you understand that you are not taking too many risks, and those that are really moving, you're holding 6 or 7 the same? Okay? So even if you have 100 cars, probably the number of configurations that you are offering your client is, let's say, 40, relative to 7.5 million, that it's really the full spectrum. So when a client comes, a prospect comes to the lot, you can imagine that the dealer is going out of his way to shove down the client's throat what he has in the lot. Many times he don't succeed to do it. Why? Because the client wants, I want this color, with this transmission, with this option, with this thing, and sorry you don't have it, I will go. Now they're not stupid, they have done what is called the locator thing, which means the dealer can go on his computer to find out what is the inventory held by all the other dealers within, let's say, 500-mile radius. Why this radius? Because let's face it, you have to move the car. You cannot drive it. Because if you buy a Cadillac, you don't want to see a new Cadillac with 500 miles on the speedometer, okay? This has to go on a truck, and this costs money quite nicely. Okay? So beyond 500 miles, it's probably going to cost almost the entire profit of the dealer, so there's no point in looking at it. Now, he's not looking to find the car for you so quickly, simply because if he will find a car that you are willing to buy in another dealer, is to split the profit half and half with the other dealer. So first of all, he will really try to convince you what he has. If he finds in the other dealer how many different cars he will find within a radius of 500 miles, even if you are in a very popular area of the States, let's say 1,000 different configurations, still very far from the 7.5 million that really Cadillac could have offered and is offering. 25% of all car sales in the United States are cars that have been moved from one dealer to the other. Which means to that extent, clients want what they want. Who knows how much they don't buy and went and bought a total different car, okay? Turns out that about 2% were saying, I don't want it, I want my car, I'm placing an order. It's possible to get it, I'm placing an order. The dealers, most dealers went out of their way to convince the client not to do it. Most dealers refused to take the order. Why? Well, in the car industry, and here I'm talking about Ford, GM, and Chrysler. By the way, in Europe, the situation is not better at all. First of all, as you notice, on average, it's 75 days, something like that, which means you have to wait. This means also you can get it also in 120 days. But that's not the problem. You're willing to wait it, okay? The dealer have told you, listen, you'll have to wait 3 months. And you said, fine, I'm willing to wait 3 months. Okay. The problem is that in 40% of the cases, the car that eventually arrives is not the car that you've ordered. Now go and explain it to the client. Now, who do you think gets all the flack? The dealer. So many dealers are saying, God forbid, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to ruin my own reputation. That was the situation. We have done exactly that. This was courageous, unbelievably courageous. Look what's happening here. Do you know what's the meaning here? This means GM, Cadillac, holds cars, finished cars that they haven't sold. This is a total no-no in GM since GM was established. Whereas the finished cars should be at the dealer. And the minute that the car is at the dealer, Wall Street recognizes it as a sale. And yes, GM has the power to persuade the dealer to take the car. By the way, ask yourself, where did the dealer took the money to buy the car? Many times he borrowed the money, of course. From whom? From GM. By the way, same thing in Ford, same thing in Chrysler, okay? What was the collateral? The car itself. And in the model year change, who do you think gives the rebate to get rid of the car? It's not the dealer. It's a car manufacturer. But according to Wall Street, the sale was done. So under these circumstances, do you understand what's the meaning of building here the plant warehouse? I could have sent it to the dealer. I could have registered it as a sale, and I'm not doing it, I'm holding it back. Same thing in the regional warehouses. More than that, in the regional warehouse, it meant to buy land. And they've done it. And in the last 3 years, everywhere in North America, if you come to a dealer of Cadillac, yes, they will still try to persuade you to buy from the lot. Not so much as before, most of them. If they can't, they will show you a list of about 100 cars called popular configuration, or popcorns. Not popcorns, popcorns. And then they will tell you, if you choose any one of these 100 different configurations, we guarantee 24 hours, you have it.
You buy it.
24 hours, you have it. 99 plus, you have it. And by the way, the popular configurations which they offer in California are not the same that they offer in Florida, and which are not the same the one that they offer in Chicago. There are changes in tastes, in markets, and so on. But now, they've done something even more. Since the bulk is taken by that, and since now the plant is producing just to fill up this buffer. And what happened when this buffer is full? What happened when this buffer is full? They shut down the line! Can you imagine?
Kick out the people?
No, they shut down the line. Kick out the people. First of all, they cannot. Okay, there is a union contract and so on. They shut down the line, sometimes for 5 hours. Do you know what's the meaning of shutting down the line, assembly line of cars? This is equal to committing a suicide before. They shut down the line to see what changes they had to do. But this means what? Now, nothing is urgent.